I turned 75 earlier this year, and I thought there must be some kind of lesson that I could pass on to help other people as they move through their lives. So I thought about it and thought about it. And what I realized was that there was an awful lot of time I don't remember. I know that in the early 80s, I had my own business. I was a mother, a housewife. Um, what I'd be running on the treadmill in the morning, watching TV, and at the same time thinking about the kids' schedule and what I was going to fix for dinner and what I had to get taken care of for the business and stuff like that. I went through life in a cloud. Now in college, I think it might have been alcohol, but during when the kids were small, I don't quite know why I wasn't thinking, why my brain wasn't going at all. So to me, the best lesson overall is awareness, simply being aware. Now, I know it's a trendy thing now, and it's called being in the present moment, and it's called savoring, and it's called finding flow, and it's called in the zone. In California, in the late 70s, I was teaching a course, and during a break, a girl came up to me and she said, I talk to my womb every day. And my eye roll still isn't done from that. California is way ahead of their time in terms of awareness or being in the present moment, or one with the universe, which was what they called it then. Um, I, I'm still not quite there, but I think I've moved a long way. So anyway, just simply being aware. Being aware, it's the best lesson ever, the best life lesson, because I think we can't learn the other lessons without being aware. We can't learn from what goes on around us unless we're aware of how we feel about it. Yes, we understand what's going on around us and we can make judgment on that, but unless we understand how it affects us and how we're feeling, if we're not aware of what's going on inside of us, I don't think we can learn the lesson that we need to. And the same is true with criticism. Criticism and gratitude. When somebody comes up to you and says, thank you so much for what you've done, you say, you're welcome, and walk away. But you never take a moment to feel that. You should be enjoying 10 seconds of simply being aware of how that makes you feel. And criticism, when you get criticism, my original thought is to say, well, that person's a jerk, or they didn't pay attention, or they didn't get the idea, they're not smart enough, or whatever it is. But now I know that criticism, I have to think about why I feel the way I feel after I've received some constructive criticism. And that's how we're going to learn. That's how, that if you're not aware, you can't learn from that event. And it's about you, it's not about them. It's about how you feel. And the same is true just with general differences. I'm trying to be less judgmental these days, and it's not that easy of a thing. Well, for me anyway. But each of us was born with a different brain configuration, and each of us went through different experiences and lived in a different place. And even if we grew up from in the same family, had the same parents, we still are different. And what I realize now is that I can't judge what somebody else thinks because I'm not in their place. So I can only judge what I think and be aware of why I think differently from somebody else. And the reason is deep inside of me. And if I can become aware of that, then I can overall be stronger, and I can accept things that are going on in my life better if I'm aware of maybe why they're happening. So we use this same concept in aquatic therapy. Unpredictable command technique, David Ogden was way ahead of his time, coming out with this probably 30 years ago. Unpredictable command technique, what he decided was that it wasn't enough for people to just do the physical movement. their brain needed to be in there. And the way he found for their brain to be involved in this movement was unpredictable commands. And it truly does get you inside here. I Chi, same thing. We do the physical movements, but we also need to add our breath to it. And simply having that breath awareness changes us and makes us more aware of how we're moving physically. So it's all about awareness. The new pain science research that Beth Scalone teaches about talks about, yes, a pill might work, and yes, this exercise might work, but the best thing is to get your brain involved. And if this one's hurting, then think about this one. Think about how great it is and how well it's working and how perfect it is, and be thankful for that. And changing the brain like that, changing our thoughts, changes the outcome. It's very interesting. It's just being aware, simply being aware. And slow motion walking is also being used. Slow motion walking, there's no way that you can go slower and slower and slower without having that proprioceptive input or kinesthetic awareness. But it's awareness. It's being aware of how we move. It's being constantly aware. So we use it in aquatic therapy, and I think that we should use it more overall in our lives. Many people call it savoring. And when I was doing the research, I found that savoring is about eating, which I'm really good at. So if you think about picking up an apple and you feel the roundness and the texture, and then you see it and you're maybe even smelling it, and then you take that first bite and you feel that juice drip down onto the front of your tongue, and you hear the crunch inside of your head, and you feel the coolness of it. And for me, I feel that little piece of skin get between two teeth so that I know I'm going to have to floss later. But then you continue to chew and you crunch on it, and you're hearing the crunch and you're feeling the crunch and you're tasting that juice further back on your tongue. And the culmination of all of this is the swallow. And you have to be aware of every single aspect. That's savoring your food. Now, I think it's a good idea. However, they say you should do that with all your meals. I think if I start that with breakfast, I won't be done with breakfast in time for lunch. So I think we could just try it for the first couple bites. We do the same thing with drinking. Your first cup of coffee in the morning, you pick it up, and many people savor it. Other people, it's gone before they even think about it. And if it's a glass of wine instead of coffee, I'm not being judgy. So do whatever it is, but take the time to savor those first few sips. And I found I broke my arm and I was in a cast earlier this year on my right hand. So showering was quite difficult. And I finally decided to take a bath. And oh my gosh, I got in the tub and I laid back and I was in that water, and I thought, why don't I do this all the time? And it's because we're in a rush. But if you, and you know what, if you're 6'4" and you get in a small tub, that's not gonna be something you savor. We all are going to savor different things, and we have to find what it is that feeds us, that makes us feel better. When we moved to Florida, I told people that what I missed most was that cool, crisp, clean air that you'd step outside and breathe. So maybe it's a scent for you, but whatever it is, be aware of it. Be aware of, we know what we don't like to smell. We're really good at that. We're really good at talking about it. But somebody walks by you and you get a scent that takes you back to when you were a child. And it might be food, and it might be a perfume, it might be a cleaner, it might be anything. But be aware of that. And if you love it, savor it. Just take, again, 10 seconds. It doesn't matter. Just be aware that it's wonderful and that you love it. So our scent, our touch, one of my favorite things is holding my grandchildren's hand as we're walking, just holding hands. It is hugs are great, but there's something about holding hands that is just joyful. So definitely find whether it's touch, and we know in therapy, touch is really good for people. So it might be touch, it might be a smell, it might be jumping in a warm bathtub, it might be healing. We tend to ignore the part that has to heal. I was ignoring my arm because I couldn't use it. So what good was it? And then I finally decided I needed to be aware of what was going on in that arm to make sure it was healing right. And every day in the cast, I'd move my fingers as I could and try to notice how that would radiate up my arm and how it felt. And was it feeling good? And if I turned my hand in the cast, was it hurting or was it fine? And at what point was simply being aware. Simply being aware. It's excellent for you for healing, whether it's emotional or physical or mental, whatever is going on. And I find peace in the water. When I get in a warm pool and I'm by myself and I'm trying different things, and I'm thinking, would this work? Now let's see. How about that? What if I turn this way? I'll look up at the clock and I'll think, oh, the clock is wrong, because time goes so fast. When you find what you savor, when you find what feeds your soul, you're going to lose sense of time. And that's the thing that's good for you. For some people, it's gaming. For our daughter and our nephew and Angie, it's gardening. Getting their hands in all dirty like that. I don't get it, but that's not what I love, but it's what they love. Our daughter also loves photography, finding the beauty, finding the art of the earth. Find what feeds you, not what other people love. Some of you love to go to a party, others of you love to stay home. Do what feeds you. So music, my sister, if there's a song on that she loves, you might as well not talk to her because she's gone. She's in that music and probably dancing, well, depending on the wine, whatever. So being outdoors is all some people need. And one person, all she needed to do was do nails. I read a book called Finding Flow by a researcher named Mikhail Csikszentmihalyi, which took me forever to learn to pronounce. What he did, he was in the Netherlands and went to a mental hospital in the Netherlands and did this research where certain patients he chose, and when the timer went off, that patient had to stop what they were doing, pick up a pencil, and answer a questionnaire. The questionnaire asked about their levels of engagement in what they were doing. It asked them about what their how they were thinking, what they thought about what they were doing. It asked about how they felt emotionally about what they were doing. And basically, overall, a lot of feelings and how engaged they were, stuff like that. They noticed one of the women in this mental hospital who had been in the hospital 10 years. Every time she was doing her nails, her response was incredible. And she was so completely engaged. She was aware. So the medical team got together and decided we'll have her do some of the medical team's nails too and see how that works. And that was working really well. So then they said, let's have her do some of the other patients' nails. And that worked really well. 1 year later, she was living independently out of the hospital, totally self-sufficient, and her job, doing nails. She became aware of what she loved. That's what I want for you. Find what you love. Find what you can savor. Be aware so that you know this. Because for some of you, it'll be your job. And that's awesome. But some of you, it's going to be after your job that feeds your food, you'll have this job that feeds your soul. Whatever it is, find your passion.